Last night, Alabama loses on the road in Knoxville. We're about to talk to our man Gary Parrish, one of the smart basketball brains in America, on just what it means. You know, I always talk about how we're in a football mentality here in the state of Alabama. So one loss, and we're all running outside with our hair on fire going, oh, my God, we lost a game. But I think maturity-wise, Alabama fans handled last night okay. So let's see what Gary thinks about last night.
Well, they didn't rush the court and throw the goal in the Tennessee River, so that was better than football. Gary Parrish is with us now, CBS Sports. What is up, Gary? How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Doing awesome. Thanks a lot. Gary's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Let's start with one of the things you want to talk about. I don't want to just bury it at the end like some interviews will do. Alabama's doing something cool this weekend that you've had a long association with. Coaches for Literacy. Nate Oates is participating in this weekend's game. Just tell our audience what this is and why it's important to get involved.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up. We will talk basketball in a second, I assure you. But, yeah, you'll notice this weekend if you're watching Alabama's game that Nate Oates and his staff will have green lapel pins or maybe green ties, but there'll be some green in their outfits, and that is to bring awareness to a foundation called Coaching for Literacy, which uses sporting events, primarily college basketball games, to raise money to fight the battle of illiteracy all over this country because this is surprising to me. It might be surprising to you guys. According to the Nation's report card, which documents all this stuff, currently 68% of fourth graders in the United States of America are not reading proficiently, and 33% are not reading at a basic level. In Alabama, just like my home state of Mississippi, the numbers are even worse than that. And this is troubling for a lot of obvious reasons, but also because studies show that children who are not reading at grade level by fourth grade, they are likely to face challenges with poverty, the justice system, obtaining jobs, healthcare. These are often systemic problems, and the problems that Coaching for Literacy is tackling head on. And I really can't thank Nate and his staff in the athletic department at Alabama enough for partnering with the foundation and also International Paper, which is donated already a flat $10,000 to Coaching for Literacy in connection with this game in support of Alabama's Fight for Literacy game. And IP is also matching donations up to $5,000. So if anybody is moved to find more information, you can do that at fightforliteracygames.org. That's fightforliteracygames.org. And then just scroll down, click on the Get Involved link. It's under the Alabama logo. And just so we're clear, this money that is raised in connection to this game is not going to be reinvested in New York or LA or Chicago or even Memphis, my hometown, which is where the foundation is headquartered. This money raised in connection with Alabama's Fight for Literacy game is going to stay local with Reading Allies in Tuscaloosa and the FS Irvin Elementary School in Pine Hill. It's going to provide books, resources, and tutoring for young students in and around Tuscaloosa. So Alabama fans can trust this money is going to be used in areas where Alabama fans live, and that's always been a priority for Coaching for Literacy. So again, fightforliteracygames.org is the website, and I appreciate you guys letting me bring attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome calls there. Okay, 68-59, Tennessee wins the game. Alabama becomes the last Power 5 team to lose a conference game. What was your biggest takeaway from that game last night?
Well, it was just a perfect storm of how you can still be the best team in the country but lose. And, Alabama, I don't really think any differently about Alabama today than I thought about Alabama yesterday. Now, you adjust your rankings based on they have another loss in that column. And so I dropped the Crimson Tide from 1 down to 3 in my top 25 and 1 at CBSSports.com behind Purdue and Houston. But it was a lackluster performance. They went out, turned the ball over 19 times, shot it okay from 3, but only like 33% from inside the arc. And those 19 turnovers played a part in Tennessee shooting 15 more shots in the game. They had 15 more field goal attempts than Alabama had. Simply put, you go on the road and play literally the best defensive team in the country and give them 15 more shots than you were probably going to lose. It's actually kind of impressive that Alabama was able to hang around performing the way it was performing much of that game. But still, everything that Nate wants to do with this program is on the table. Still the favorite to win the SEC. Still a favorite to get a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. They would still be that today. And go to a Final Four, win a national championship. They've got all the pieces to do it. The only thing that is concerning is that there's been a couple of unreliable performances throughout the season. The biggest one, obviously, being at Oklahoma, that can be scary when you're about to go play a single elimination tournament of 40-minute basketball games. This isn't the NBA where there's a 7-game series where you can play poorly in game 1 and it's fine. Play poorly in game 3 and lose. No big deal. They got to beat you 4 times before they move on. This is a single elimination basketball tournament. You got to win 6 games. And though you can play poorly and win some of them, if you play poorly in the wrong one, you get caught and then it's over just like that.
To your point, they were 6 of 20 at the rim last night. I wasn't as surprised about Rylan Griffin, who'd been hot lately with 0 points. I was surprised at how Mark Sears was taken out of the game. He was virtually a zero factor handling the basketball or scoring the basketball. Did you think with what Sears had done in his time with Alabama that he could be such a flat line like he was last night?
Well, he won't be very often. It's just that last night he was playing against literally the best defensive team in the country, and they're going to make a lot of people look that way. They have made a lot of people look that way. The only reason Tennessee isn't in serious contention for a 1 seed right now is because the offense is so shaky that they've taken quite a few questionable losses. If you go to my top 25 and 1 right now, there are only 3 teams in the entire top 26 that have more than 3 losses outside of quadrant 1. And Tennessee is one of them. They've got 5 losses to sub 40 net teams. And so that's sort of circles back to the point I was making about Alabama turning the ball over and giving Tennessee all of those extra shots. If you just play them shot for shot, you can beat them because they're not very good offensively. But if you're going to give them 15 more shots than you, that's how they can get big wins against teams like Alabama, against a team like Kansas. Tennessee's got big wins on this resume, but some questionable losses. But again, to your point, that's not going to happen very often. Like the last night for Alabama was the most challenging situation they are probably going to be in the rest of the year, because what they were in was a road game in a hostile environment against the best defensive team in the country. Just for some context, and I think people probably understand this, but if not, I'll make it clear. Literally nobody would be favored to go into Knoxville and win a basketball game this season. Literally nobody. Whoever you think's the best team in the country, Alabama, Houston, Purdue, UCLA, doesn't matter. They would all be underdogs in Knoxville, which of course is why this technically last night was not an upset. I know number 1 lost, but number 1 was an underdog in the game. If I'm Nate Oates, if I'm an Alabama fan, and it's nice to hear that you guys gather, Alabama fans have sort of taken it in stride, you should. On the schedule, that's the game you're supposed to lose. Now you just don't lose the next one. You get back moving in the right direction in the win column, and you'll be right where you want to be on Selection Sunday.
Gary Parrish is with us, CBS Sports. You can go follow Gary on Twitter at Gary Parrish CBS, at Gary Parrish CBS. Also, don't forget the Coaches for Literacy, coachingforliteracy.org. You can find the Alabama game. You can get involved there. Make a donation for the Alabama game Saturday, benefiting F.S. Irvin Elementary and Reading Allies there in Alabama. Money stays in Alabama. Gary's on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. So something we learned, and we're probably slow on the uptake on this, Gary, you're going to laugh that we're just learning this, is that the overall number 1 gets to pick their road, basically. I was unaware of this. So how important is this? Because one thing that's hanging out there is that Kansas City Sweet 16 Elite 8, where if Kansas is a 2 seed, a 1 seed might be playing a virtual road game there.
Yeah, and I think that's a real flaw with the selection process. Not that the overall number 1 seed can pick where it wants to play, but that, and this happens all the time, a number 1 seed can find itself in the Elite 8 playing what amounts to a road game against a lower seeded team. When I was a beat writer at the Commercial Appeal newspaper in Memphis covering John Calipari's Tigers, if you go back to that 2006 season, Memphis was the number 1 seed in the West. Memphis was essentially the 4th number 1 seed, so they got shipped out west. UCLA was the number 2 seed in the West, and they both advanced as they were supposed to do. They met in the Elite 8, and that game was played in Oakland, California, in front of 18,000 UCLA fans. And John Calipari was livid. Why are we playing a road game against UCLA in California when we're the 1 seed and they're the 2? Now, what the selection committee will tell you is that according to the bracket principles, they don't play it out that far. Like, they don't assume the 1 and the 2 are going to meet in the Elite Eight, so they don't take that into consideration. Again, that doesn't make any sense to me, because why wouldn't you assume the 1 and 2 are going to play in the Elite Eight? It is literally the most likely scenario. But to your point, absolutely, you don't want to end up in a situation where you're playing Kansas or Kansas State in Kansas City. So, yeah, Purdue right now has the best resume in the country, but that could change over the next few weeks. And if you're Alabama, you're in contention to actually be the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. I don't know that they'll get there. I'm not sure I would predict it, but they're in contention to do it. And if you get it, you will get the most advantageous path to the Final Four that you could possibly get.
So interesting but not surprising news. DA drops case against Chris Beard. We all here agree if we're in AD, we need a basketball coach. We hire Beard. We deal with the shitstorm that comes after for 72 hours to a year or to maybe a week. But Andy Katz was on this show 3 weeks ago, and he said Chris Beard will not be coaching next year. He was like, the details in this case are too much. Now that the case has been dropped, the charges have been dropped, what is your opinion? Do you think Chris Beard will be coaching sooner or later?
I think sooner rather than later. And this is not something I would have said the day after he was arrested. But I've been around college athletics long enough to know once the quote charges are dropped, that opens it up for athletic directors and presidents to do what they want to do and sort of explain it away by saying, well, you realize the charges were dropped. Why are we punishing this man? The criminal justice system did not punish this man, didn't even pursue the charges once they went a little bit down that path. So why should he pay? He's already paid a significant price losing his dream job at Texas. What more price does he have to pay? I'm not sure I subscribe to that completely. I'm just telling you that is exactly what is going to be said when somebody tries to hire him. I think the challenging thing for Chris is that this isn't really a he said, she said thing. Those are a little easier to get around. This is a situation where his fiance, and just for the spirit of transparency, I know both of these people. I've been to dinner with both of these people, Chris and his fiance. It was real trouble. That was a hard one to learn and to talk about and to write about because, I like both of them independent of this situation. But the issue facing Chris now is she called 911. The law enforcement officials showed up. They looked at her. They examined her. She had physical injuries. She told them that he either strangled her or choked her or something. So there's really no getting around the fact that there was a violent physical altercation between these two people. Now, the fiance has subsequently come out and said, I was the aggressor. I was the initiator. Chris was really only acting in self-defense. And perhaps that is true on some level. But as I explained, as the story goes in this situation, Chris and her they've been having trouble in their relationship. At some point, she broke his glasses, and that appears to have set him off. And on a very basic level, I can understand that. If my wife broke my glasses, just snapped them in half in front of me, I would be upset with her. But if I put my hands on my wife, I'd be the one going to jail. To answer your question, I do think Chris Beard's going to coach again. I think it'll be more than a week of, as you put it, a shitstorm, because every time you go on the road, student sections are going to be chanting woman beater. Like, are you comfortable dealing with that? Because that is what you're going to have to deal with. But if you can deal with it, what you will have if you hire him is absolutely, undeniably one of the best college basketball coaches in the entire country. This guy is thought of that way. What he did at Little Rock, Texas Tech, and Texas underlines it. And that's why he's so good at coaching a basketball team and running a basketball program. I do think he'll get another chance. And yes, I won't be surprised if it's next season.
Potential landing spots.
I mean, the one that keeps coming up on Twitter is Ole Miss if they were to make a change. And that's my wife's alma mater. I live in the state of Mississippi. I have no doubt whatsoever that if Chris Beard is the next coach at Ole Miss, he will kill it there. He'll be great. But if you're Keith Carter, the athletic director, or that administration, you got to really understand what you're doing. You're not just hiring somebody who was accused of something. You are hiring somebody who did something. That is still undeniable. Now, maybe there's an explanation for it, but what happened, and you're going to have to wrap your head around that and be comfortable with it. I think some schools will, but I do believe a lot of schools would say, I'm just not going to touch this right now.
237 wins and 98 losses. The guy has killed it when he's been a head coach. I wanted to ask you real quickly about another team in the state of Texas, Texas A&M. Looking at the SEC standings now, Alabama with 1 loss, A&M with 2 losses. I kept waiting for Buzz's team to go away, but they beat Arkansas last night. They were down 9 at the half. They win again. When it's all said and done, they play the last game of the regular season. Is there a chance that's for the SEC regular season championship?
Absolutely. And I don't think so. I think Alabama is going to win this by multiple games, but there is a chance, certainly. And what a weird season A&M has had. I had them ranked in the preseason. I thought they'd be good, and they clearly are now. But, boy, it took them a while to get here. I mean, they lost to Murray State, Colorado, Memphis, Wofford, Boise State. They were 6-5 through 11 games outside of the top 70 at KenPom. Now they're inside the top 35, obviously playing really well within the league. I think some of it is because, different SEC teams are some combination of disappointing or dealing with injuries. Kentucky disappointing. Arkansas has had injury issues. They've taken advantage of that, but that's all you can do. Like Pitt Jeff Capel at Pitt is taking advantage of a down at ACC. And I think Buzz Williams at Texas A&M is on some level taking advantage of a down SEC. You don't have to apologize for it, though. If you can get a league title, raise the banner and take it to the NCAA tournament. And that program is clearly headed in the right direction now.
All right, weird thing to watch tonight, Gary, as you go. Confirmation, I just got it from the UAB traveling party. The heat has been out for about 24 hours at the Haskins Center in El Paso, where the high today is in the 40s. So it is going to be quite cold in there at Tip tonight, apparently. So keep an eye on that one for UAB to UTEP.
I had not heard that. I guess it's better to play in the cold in February than the heat in July with no air conditioning. But still, that's less than ideal. Thank you for putting that on my radar, because now I'll be interested to see how it turns out.
It could look like one of those outdoor hockey games,
yeah.
and some of the guys are going to be skating around with toboggans on.
Friends and family on hand for that one. UTEP's not very good, and I'm not going to go sit in 40 degrees to watch it. All right, so go to coachingforliteracy.org. You had another website, too, more specific for this game, Gary.
Yeah, if you go to I want to make sure I've got it right.
Yeah,
fightforliteracygames.org. It's fightforliteracygames.org. It takes you to the same website, just to a very specific page, fightforliteracygames.org. You see the Alabama logo. Click on the Get Involved link, and everything you need to know will be right there. And again, thank you guys for letting me bring attention to it. It really is a nice foundation, making real improvements all around this country, including right where you guys live.
Yep, you bet. Thank you very much, Gary. Enjoy the games this weekend.
I will. Take care, guys.
All right, buddy. Gary Parrish with us from CBS Sports, at Gary Parrish CBS on Twitter, if you would like to follow him there.